Virginia report card. Emerson.
I know what, there's something better. Thank you. Why was it Steve? Oh, wait, Steve must. Yeah, I know Steve. I, for some reason, read that it was Steve Michigan. And I was like, how is he? What did he do with the American Legion? How is he associated with that? So is it his dad or something? Different guy. Older guy.
Yeah, his dad's a county prosecutor.
Michiniakis?
Yes. Resolution, the way correct. So make sure movie class. Yeah, that's like to pay music licensing fees for streaming.
It's only 1,700 then. That's not terrible.
Educational purposes. Otherwise,
Netflix.
all those movies I show.
Oh, we do movies.
Yeah, that's the app right now. So out of the country travel for
Miss Hepburn. Yeah, no.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order for September 12, 2019, regular board meeting of the Streetsboro City Schools Board of Education. Mr. Scarcipino, please call the roll.
Mr. Violi.
Here.
Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Mrs. Baba. Mr. Gibson.
Here.
Mr. Grimm.
Here. Please stand for the pledge. Mr. Scarcipino, would you lead us, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I understand we have nobody signed up for comments tonight, so we will.
I'll hop right into it. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September live broadcast of the Streetsboro Board of Education meeting. I am still Alex Antonsic. Tonight's meeting, as always, being held in the Henry Deffer Intermediate Cafeteria. Throw it back on over to you, Mr. Good.
Thank you, Director of Finance. Appreciate it. You did say you did get a promotion. It's awesome. Okay, moving on to number 2, approval of minutes. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the minutes from 8/8/19 and 8/15/19 as submitted. Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Violi.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to superintendent's report, Mr. Gallo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to begin with our first Did You Know of the school year, and this is this section of my report is usually to highlight to you, the members of the board, and to our public that are either listening, watching, or in attendance, something that you may not have known about the district. we have a little bit of a different spin on it this month because we're going to allow Mr. Isle, our new Director of Curriculum Instruction, to come up and introduce himself and give his thoughts. So, Mr. Isle?
Do I speak at the?
Yes. I'm sure the mic's on. I didn't put a stool over there.
It moves up and down. I was gonna say that. Welcome to Streetsboro.
Well, good evening. My name is Matt Isle. I'm the Director of Curriculum. Just wanted to share a few thoughts about how excited I am to be joining the group, even after that warm welcome by Superintendent Dahlbaugh. And I was told that I need to keep my remarks relatively short. I had about a 40 to 50 minute speech all organized, but I don't want to steal any of Mr. Dahlbaugh's thunder. The report cards came out today, and we're really, really excited. When we were able to see some of the preliminary data on Monday, you know, it just reaffirms the real reason why I wanted to come here in the first place. And back in July, you know, Mr. Dahlbaugh and I, we were talking, and he said, you know, we really need to find and showcase all the great things that are going on here in Streetsboro. And with the help of the administrative team, I put together a real brief 3-minute presentation, data presentation that I shared with the entire staff during our convocation meeting. And so we're going to show that for you here in a minute, so you can take a look at it as well. But just a few remarks about the quality education that our kids are receiving. We tasked our staff. One of the things we talked about, you know, research-based intervention or something that just good teachers do is simple. Building relationships with kids, right? Giving them a reason to get up in the morning and want to come to school. And we've been tasked under Mr. Dahlbaugh's leadership to really embrace, you know, a collaborative culture, building trust that grew out of our staff satisfaction survey in the spring. And in my visits to the buildings, I see a lot of smiling kids. I see a whole lot of smiling teachers in the doorway greeting children, hugging on them, both literally and figuratively, not too much at the high school, I promise you. It's just really refreshing to see the level of enthusiasm that is emanating from our teaching ranks and classified ranks as well. Just good things are happening here. The staff feels energized, and I feel energized. The community supports us. Wonderful buildings. It's just, kids are excited to be here, and we are too. So I'm going to ask Andreas to flip that switch for us. You might generate some laughs, but it just showcases some of the really great things that may not be captured in the district report card that's going to be reported about the next few days. All right. Thanks, everyone. the message that we sent. That was the message that we sent to the staff. They walked out of convocation with, and Mike and I, and the administrative team, we've been talking about these small incremental systematic changes. I've even quoted that in the most recent article that appeared in today's paper. But we really want Streetsboro to become that kind of quality school district that will well outlast any one of us, right? And we're not going to be able to achieve those kinds of changes overnight. We're really excited about the small things we're putting in place. It's going to really just keep the culture moving in the right direction. That's all about being all about kids at every level, right? Because that's what we are. We're in the business of shaping minds and giving children the opportunity to dream anything they want to dream. And I'm really excited for the staff, and they're really buying in. I know they bought into that message for a while. We are set up for success. So something that I'm sure you already all knew about that, but I'm just really excited to be seeing with my own eyes.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll echo, Matt did a nice job. I felt like it was critical for Matt at opening day, the first round, to make a real positive connection with the staff. And we had talked about it prior to opening day that, we really wanted to emphasize the positivity that's going on in our district. We felt like the staff felt really beat up at the end of last year as we progressed through a tough few months after the levy failed, and we all worked real hard to get that passed. And while it's a huge responsibility that the community gave us by passing the levy, I think it was a huge responsibility to be good stewards of that money and to move the district forward. You can't do that if people aren't feeling good about themselves and what they're doing. So it's ironic, I'm using the word ironic because I didn't really look at Matt's presentation prior to opening day. I just kind of, I talked about brainstorming what we wanted to do. He didn't see my presentation. And then Mr. Grimm opened the convocation with about a 10 minutes presentation and speech, and we didn't know what he was doing. And they all very much flowed and again talked about the same thing. And I'll use Kevin's words, we are Streetsboro. And that was our theme. We are Streetsboro, be proud of who we are, where we are, and where we've come. And I personally, and I will welcome Kevin to chime in, but I personally walked out of that feeling energized. And I don't think I've ever had so many staff members reach out to me and say that, thanks, we're excited. This is probably one of the most energizing starts we've had in years. We're excited to be here, and we're not going to let you down. And it was just a general positive vibe as we walked out. And I think that we needed that.
Absolutely, and I had a staff member say the same to me at the end of the time, and I asked her to spread the word because she said, "Oh, I'm sure you guys had that all planned out." I said, "Absolutely not." I said, "Nobody knew anything that the other person was going to say," and she said, "Wow, that was really impressive." I said, "Please spread the word." So, yeah, I can tell that there's a lot of positivity in the room.
So anyway, thanks, Matt, for showing that. So my next update, I think, is appropriate that I talk about the report card. So before I do that, I had Sue make a packet for all of you. So I'll pass that down. You don't need to go through this packet while I'm doing a presentation. This is for you to take a deeper dive later, okay? But in the very back of the packet, I just put a Record Courier article that was released about 5 o'clock this evening. And it has a quote I sent a quote this morning before our data was released because I had an administrative meeting. So she actually had a snapshot of our data before the rest of the state did. But I did put a quote on there. And basically, and Andres, you're going to cue up the slideshow while I'm talking.
Yep.
Basically, I began, and I'm going to begin right now. Anyone that is listening, anyone that's going to watch this later, and anyone in the audience, I want you guys to be the first to hear me say that we absolutely recognize that we have a lot of work to do. Period. I think if you ask any staff member, they will say we have a lot of work to do. So please let there be no doubt that this superintendent is telling this board and this community that we recognize we have a lot to do and we're not going to stop. We're going to keep doing it. But I got to tell you something. We have cause to celebrate. Systemic change. Systemic change, I think, I don't know, in case you don't know what systemic change is when you put things into place that are going to last over time and make a meaningful difference. That's systemic change. And part of my quote in the Record Courier this morning was, we have implemented systemic change in this district. It takes a long time for that to turn, our goal obviously are grades, academics, achievement. It takes time for that to turn around. I would argue that if you put Band-Aid fixes on things, you're going to see immediate results, but they're not sustainable, all right? So could we possibly have put some Band-Aids on really quick and elevated this district significantly further along than we did? Probably. But our administrative team was committed to making meaningful systemic changes, and that's what we did. And we're not done, but we've had some meaningful systemic changes made, and I think that you're going to see as I go through this report card, we have a lot of work to do, but you're going to see that we're starting to turn the ship in the right direction, and we're starting to make those meaningful changes, and we're starting to head in the right direction. So anyone out there, I want you to hear it loud and clear. We are not resting on any laurels. We are not saying that this is enough. We are saying that we have a lot of work to do, but I am taking my hat and tipping it to my staff who has worked really hard to implement systemic changes for our students. So let's go to that first slide, Andres. So these are our grades for last year. So take a peek at that. Overall, we had a D last year in achievement. We had a D, I think we only nailed 6 of the 24 tested indicators. Our progress, which is a huge one, that's your value added progress grade, that's growing all students, not just your average student, not your gifted, not your students with disabilities, not your subgroups, that's growing all students. We had an F last year. That, in my opinion, on that report card, if I had to pick the most important grade up there, and the one that embarrassed me the most last year wasn't the D overall, it was the F in progress. Period. Period. And I've said it to the staff before, and I've said it to people who have asked me about it. Moving on, our gap closing, closing that gap with different subgroups. We had a B. Our graduation rate, that is a 5-year look back, remember, that's accounting for all the way 5 years back. It was a B. Improving those at-risk K-3 readers, that's a tough one because it's so hard to understand. Because that's measuring progress of kids that are in kindergarten, first and second grade as they progress from kindergarten to first to second, and second to third. That's not measuring when they leave, okay? Because last year when they left, if that was the grade, it would have been an A. Because we only had last year, this report card, so 2018 data, I think we only had 4 or 5 that didn't meet the third grade guarantee. That's should be our measure. They should be putting up the number of kids that met the third grade guarantee, because that tells you the kids when they're leaving third grade, K3, are they ready or are they not ready? So that K-3 one's a tough one to understand, but we were in a D. Our kids from kindergarten to first to second, second to third, they were behind. It was about D. And then prepared for success last year was an F. And there's a lot of pieces to that. Now let's flip to this year. And this is where I'm excited. I'm excited for the district. I'm excited for you, the Board of Education. I'm excited for our kids in our community. Let's take a look at our achievement. Our achievement went up to a C. And we went from 6, nailing 6 of the 24 tested indicators to 9. And we were actually pretty close in some other ones too. But close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. So we're gonna just celebrate the 9 that we named. We got a C. Looking at the progress, like I said before, you're gonna hear me talk about this. It's not because I'm trying to deflect anything. I just think this is an important grade, you guys. This is important. We're taking all kids in the Streetsboro City School District, and we're growing them. They gave us a B. The only area that you can see up there, you don't have your binoculars on, but I'll tell you, we had a B, and A, and an A. The F up there underneath that brought it down from an A to a B, was our gifted subgroup. And thank you to Mr. Isle, and he's done some pretty critical digging into this. And then I would also throw an attaboy out there to Mr. Hogue in the back, because he's been integral as a part of that too. We're starting to drill down into that. And I'm going to give you an example. In the state of Ohio, you have to identify gifted, but they don't give you funding, nor do they mandate that you serve gifted. That's up to a district to do that, okay? So the bulk of that F came from, we had over 90 students identified as gifted at the high school, all right? And we served 3. So when Matt came on board, he's like, what? How many AP classes do you have? How many kids do you have leaving going to Kent State or wherever for College Credit Plus? How many of those gifted kids are doing that? Most of them. So then why is that an F? We're digging into that, but I'm going to give you a quick snapshot. what we're starting to find is that perhaps they're not coded correctly, and perhaps our teachers that are teaching those AP classes, they have to have, and I'm not going to, they have to have a certain number of hours to be considered gifted endorsed. We had a different set of information on what that meant. Mr. Isle has brought a different lens, if you will, to what that number of hours means. And he's going to clarify a lot of that tomorrow in a gifted meeting, and we're going to work for clarification. But we believe, not an overnight fix, but we believe the majority of our teachers at the high school, the majority of them, I'm saying most of them, but especially the ones that teach AP, they either already have the hours and we haven't coded it, or they're within reach of the number of hours to say that they're gifted endorsed, which then would mean we take those 87 kids that were not served, and we would be serving the vast majority of them. So that's where that, and that also is a part of that F down there, Prepared for Success, okay? So we are digging into this. I don't have any more data tonight to share with you other than what I just said, but know that when we figure this out, we're going to put a plan into place. I mean, I read a quick email tonight on my way in from Jamie to Matt, and I was included on it. And the counselor at the high school is already looking at some opportunities for our department heads and our AP teachers. Again, that can give them some more of those hours that can get them to gifted certified. We think we're really close to gifted certifying all of our AP teachers, we think. And then we also believe that our gifted identified kids that are taking advantage of College Credit Plus, we may have just coded it wrong, and perhaps they were considered served. So that's where that F came from. Fortunately, it probably brought us down from an A to a B in progress, but let's bring some reality to this. We were at an F last year, and we are at a B now. We are growing kids. What is our vision in this district? We're going to take every kid in the Streetsboro City School District and grow them a year. That's that progress grade right there. Yep.
So that F, because we didn't classify the gifted as being served, is that why it's an F?
Yes.
That's exactly one.
Yes.
Getting those teachers certified potentially fix that.
Potentially, yes. So yes, getting the teachers enough hours to be considered their gifted certification. We're still clarifying exactly what that meant. The Ohio Revised Code changed it a few years ago, and it's now a certain number of in-service hours in the area of gifted instruction. Okay, and that's a broad definition. So there's a lot of things that, for example, Mr. Hogue took his department heads or your AP to the AP conference. Is that correct, Jamie?
College Board Regional Conference, which luckily was in downtown Cleveland, so we didn't have to like spend as much as far as expenses go. They commuted on all day on a Sunday, all day on a Monday, and spent the entire time learning about College Board, the AP classes they teach, the changes that were coming this year, and how to teach it better. Actually, our AP coordinator at the high school, Kelly Simmons, presented at that conference, and she led the College Board Regional Council.
So the reason that's important is because, again, we believe that conference that they spent probably 12 hours, at least 12 hours of contact time, could be 12 hours toward that gifted thing, or gifted gifted endorsement, not endorsement, but certification in order to qualify as doing gifted instruction. Because that's what we do, and that's what most of your, actually, I would say the lion's shares of your high schools in Ohio do. They don't have gifted classes for high school students. They accelerate the opportunities for them. They take College Credit Plus, they take AP classes. Some places offer International Baccalaureate. They take International Baccalaureate classes. That's how high schools around the state of Ohio serve their gifted kids. We offer them a lot of the same opportunities. We just don't have our teachers, or we don't think, or we actually might have our teachers with enough hours that we can count that. So we're digging into it. I'm sorry that was a long answer to your short question, Mr. Fielding, but that was. Okay, so just moving on down, gap closing, we remain a B, graduation rate, we remain a B. Again, that's a 5-year look back, and within your packet, there's some more data you can look at. K through literacy, that complicated one, but we went from a D to a C, that's progress. And then we remained at an F for Prepared for Success. We did tell our community during the the levy cycle, that we thought that was going to come up significantly. And we don't know why it didn't, because the information we had from ODE had the worst 2 years dropping off, which should have been in the most recent years. So we have to dig into that. I'm not going to even try and give you an explanation right now, but we have some ideas about why it remained an F. We believe our kids are prepared to go to college and to go into careers and go into the military. So we do not believe, and you'll see that in the article, that most of the superintendents across the state of Ohio, not our, had an F or a D in this area. And so we don't feel like that this is inaccurate, and this is something that a state legislature needs to work on, because that doesn't accurately measure whether or not our kids are ready to go to college. You know, we're taking a little bit of a leap of faith, and we give our kids at the high school the SAT because we feel like the SAT more correctly aligns with our end of course exams, the expectations of getting kids into college. Not very many schools around the state of Ohio use the SAT, but that's part of that. Most people do ACT, and kids' scores are typically higher on the ATC. We still feel the data the SAT gives us is a more accurate and more valid data than the ACT. And we're even going to start using our PSAT a little differently. That's what we give 8th graders. Some districts give it to 9th graders. And we can use that to modify our instruction, the PSAT, because again, it better helps match kids and their success toward those high school classes and of course exams, so forth and so on. So we're going to dig more into that. So look at the needle at the bottom just really quick. You know, and again, a C is a C. We got a C, right? We got a C. But if you look at the points, I think we had 2.71 total points, which put us right in C. But if you look at that arrow up there, it's closer to the green than it is to the orange. A 3.1 would have given us a B. So we're trending in the right direction. That arrow was above a D, which is where we were last year, but that arrow is moving ever so closer to that mean, and I think that we're heading in the right direction. Flip to the next slide. I wanted to give you a quick comparison, just instead of trying to flip back and forth between two. There's our progress, folks. Letter grade from a D, 6 indicators of the 24, to a C, 9 of the tested indicators of the 24. Achievement, D to a C. Progress, that's a value add from an F to a B. That's a big one. Brag about that when you guys are out and about. Brag about it. But say first, we have a lot of work to do, because we do. Gap closing, state remained a B. Graduation rate remained a B. Another big one, improving the at-risk K-3 readers, went from a D to a C. And then, of course, we already talked about the prepared for success. Any comments or questions before I flip to the next slide? Brian?
Just a comment. I know you said you're going to dig into the prepare for success. You know, I know you'll report that to us. But I just wanted to say.
We're going to dig into all of it and understand why all the grades were there were. And I would anticipate a report card presentation either in October or November. But we're going to make sure that we dig and get the correct answers before I present it. Because I want to make sure, because something else that we're trying to do, and I hope that you've noticed, is that we're trying to keep our public informed. I had the district report card posted on our website and on Twitter and on Facebook before it was even released this morning. Because we're going to be as transparent as possible, and we're going to get the information out in front of people. So we're going to try, and at this point, this presentation will go up on the website too. But we're going to try to stay out, but I'm going to make sure though that we're going to do the best we can that when we present information, it's going to be accurate information. So give me some time on that, because I want to do it correctly. But October, probably November, maybe a little more realistically on a deeper dive. Next slide. This gives you a look at the buildings under each one of the test, each one of the report card. Starting at Streetsville Elementary, the grade on the left under each box is 2018. The grade on the right, which is the arrow pointing to, is this year. Okay, so I just overlaid last year and this year. So Streetsville Elementary, you can see gap closing. We did have a drop from A to C, and again, we've not dug into that. My guess is it's probably some of our subgroups, and those change. You know, it's important to note that in elementary, this is where your primary identification of students that are struggling occurs. If we don't identify students that are struggling or at risk or with disabilities potentially by 3rd grade, we're not doing our job. So, you know, that number can actually fluctuate significantly every year, but it's an important number. And I know Greg looked at that and he kind of just shook his head, and he wants, he and his team really want to dig into those. Again, we already talked about the improving the at-risk grader, went from a D to a C at Streetsboro Elementary, and then the overall grade was a C. Looking at DEFR, we saw a lot of gains at DEFR. Let's take a look at that. DEFR went from a D to a C in achievement. Progress, they went from an F to a B. That's huge. Gap closing, they went from a C to a B, and then their overall grade went from from a D to a C, and it really was not far from that B. Matt Ryan was saying today during an administrative meeting that he felt bad for his staff. He was kind of taking it personally responsible because he really felt like that progress grade and the achievement both should have been in letter grade higher, and that's almost become a mission of his, if you will. He's going to really dig into that for it with him and for his OPES, and he has some real specific plans in place to address that. So definitely they go from a D to a C. Middle school, again, look at that. They remained a D on achievement based on indicators, but they picked up an indicator. But look at that, from an F to an A in progress, and that represents a lot of hard work. Stated a B with gap closing, their overall grade went from a D to a B. And then finally at the high school, they went from a C to a D in achievement. Again, that had a little bit to do with some of the gifted indicator. Because they did, I believe, picked up an indicator at the high school. They stayed the same with the number of indicators they nailed. Progress, they went from a C to a B. That's huge. Gap closing stayed at a B. Graduation rate stayed at a B. Prepared for success, we've already talked about it, stayed in that. And again, the high school actually was pretty close to nailing a B as well. They stayed at a C though. So overall, in every area, in every area in the district, as a district report card, we've either stayed the same or increased, and our letter grades in all our buildings have either stayed the same or increased. I think this is cause to celebrate. I sent out a little celebratory message to our staff tonight to congratulate them, because it's a lot of hard work, and a lot of folks, when they saw this report card day to day, I actually heard a couple people like tearing up when they saw it, and that's how passionate people are here about teaching our kids and educating our kids. Let's flip to the next slide. You already saw this on Mr. Isles' presentation that he did. Here's some of the highlights. Here's just a few I picked out. We've had 9 of the 24 indicators, 6 last year. Our achievement went from D to C. Our progress went from an F to B, improving K-risk, at-risk K through greater D to a C. Overall grade in the district D to a C. This is awesome. This is cool. 100% of our students met the 3rd grade reading guarantee. That's huge. And then another big one, for the first time in Streetsboro High School history, not only was our AP US history the highest score in our district's history in AP, it was extremely exceeding the state average on that exam. So it was arguably one of the highest grades in the state. And Jamie, there were 18 kids in the class.
18 total in the class.
And they all took the test, and 16 of them received a 3 or a higher. That's pretty amazing.
And the thing is, they weren't, normally we have AP classes, very a lot of selection goes into the process. This wasn't that. It was a random selection from our honors. Then there were some kids that, halfway through the year were like, this is for me. So it wasn't, but we really think that this class would be better this year. The good thing about it is this teacher that taught it for the first time, this is the first time we offered it, really was on board with exactly what College Board recommends. Kelly Simmons, again, our counselor, that's our AP coordinator, worked with the teacher that taught the class. He did everything that she told him to do, and the results were this way. So now all of our other AP teachers are looking at this teacher that taught this class for the first year with a random selection of students and scored this well, and are going to do what we've been asking them to do before that. They would take it as suggestions before, but now they can't wait to meet with Kelly and Jeff who put this together because they saw the good results. So we're excited for not just next year's AP US History class, but our AP program. The other thing is these students are 10th graders. We had never really offered AP classes to 10th graders before. So they've been indoctrinated to what is AP, and they're going to be the ones taking AP Government, AP Calc, AP Biology, and the other AP Lit, the other AP classes for the next 2 years. So with this success as 10th graders, we're really expecting bigger things from them as they go football.
Thank you, Jamie. And what Jamie just said, again, emphasizes continuous improvement. We're identifying things that are going right, and we're capturing those, and we're spreading the word.
It's a huge savings to those kids in college.
And I would say one of my visions as a superintendent, and I don't think I've ever said this publicly, I would like our kids to stay here and not go to college credit plus, not go to Kent State.
But
But the key to that is offering AP courses and then showing these kids that, hey, you can stay here and experience the high school experience, take the AP courses and look at our success rate, and then you get college credit when you leave. Because I think kids need to stay at our high schools and have that high school experience. I am not kudos to the kids that are driving to Kent and Mount Union and Tri-C and Hiram. I mean, kudos to them. I'm not judging that, but I want kids to stay in our high school and have the high school experience. And the more we do to improve our AP classes and the success rate, the more tempting it is going to be for kids to say, yeah, you know what, maybe I don't want to drive my car when the snow starts flying in November to whatever college. Maybe I would like to stay at Streetsboro High School and get some of that college credit out of the way. So I'm hoping that that happens. That sometimes is a natural side effect of a successful AP program. We're always going to have kids taking advantage of college credit plus, and that's fine. But I just really want kids to stay and experience our high schools. I think we have a great high school. We offer great opportunities for our kids that a lot of high schools don't have. And I don't know. I see these great kids going to Kent State, and great for them. But they just stay and experience the 7:30 to 2:30 day and all the things that we have to offer, and the pep rallies and school meetings, and really a wide variety of opportunities, a radio station, a TV station. That they can't do that when they're doing college credit plus. They can take AP classes and still do that. So I don't know. I'm sorry I was on a soapbox with that, but I'm excited about our AP. That's why we put it up there. So let's go to the last slide. So this is just gives you, I want to always ask me, how do we do in the county? So I pulled this together about 20 minutes before the meeting, and this gives you a quick snapshot of where everyone was in the county. Aurora did receive an overall grade of an A. They were one of 31 districts out of 640-ish, whatever it is, in the state that did get an A, and they were only one of 22 that has had an A 2 years in a row. Congratulations, Aurora. They did a great job. Crestwood received a C. Field went from a C to a B. Garfield remained at a C. Kent went from a C to a B. Ravenna remained at a D, Bristown remained at a C, Southeast remained at a C, Streetsboro went from a D to a C, Waterloo stayed a C, and Wyndham went from a C to a D. So that kind of gives you a snapshot of our region on where we fall. I don't hear that I'm comparing us to them. I don't ever do that because I don't like comparisons, because we are who we are and we educate our kids, and it shouldn't matter what our other districts are doing. We need to strive for the A, and I don't care what the other ones are doing. But everyone always asks, how do we look like in the county? There you go. That's what we look like in the county. So this has been a lot of talk with my colleagues. We've had superintendent meetings. Actually, when we started looking at preliminary data back in June, which the reason you don't get it is it dramatically changes from June to June. That's why the data I gave you guys the school district, because it can still change. But we talk about that all the time. And even Pat Cicatelli from Aurora, he'll tell you that he's very proud. But again, he doesn't believe that an A necessarily tells the story of Aurora, and you're here, all your superintendents tell you that. Every one of us, to all First County districts, probably all of the superintendents in Ohio will tell you that they're proud of what we have to offer our kids, and our kids are successful. But we live in a world of accountability. We live in a world of A, B, C, D, F, and so that's what we're measured by. So we're working hard. That concludes my presentation on the report card. I'm going to make this available to on the website. I also will tweet it, put it on the Facebook page. Board, I did share this with you, but I did make some changes. So if you look at it once, you'll want to refresh it when you look at it, and it's going to have the updated slides on it. Okay, any questions or comments about the report card? Well, board, thank you for believing in us and giving us the nod to continue doing what we're doing. We're going to keep working hard, I promise.
Well, thank you to you and all the administrators, all the teachers, everybody in the school district that has taken part in making sure our kids are prepared to do well for testing.
Okay, next up, so in an effort to just kind of give you guys a snapshot of what's going on with our busing, the statement right out of the chute that I'm going to make, I've been in education since my 29th year. And last year was enough almost to have me hospitalized. It was the worst year of busing to start the year that I've ever experienced in my entire career. I mean, it was awful. And you heard me say that last year. It was awful. So Andreas, when we had the opportunity, and I don't know if he looks at it as an opportunity, but when I had the opportunity to tap him as a co-director of technology of busing, he had a pretty tough hill to climb. And I will say that in 29 years of education, it's really weird that they're back to back, because last year was the absolute worst. This year was the absolute best and smoothest we've ever had in transportation to start the school year. So I want to publicly give Andreas a quick. Never done before. Now with that, we did have some hiccups, and we know that, so don't want to minimize any. We had a few hiccups, everyone does, and we fixed those. But the reason we put busing on here is because we've been having, I would call it an anomaly. Andreas will let him talk about it, but we have a problem this year, and it's with people blowing through our red lights. So Andreas, why don't you just give us a quick update on that, what you're doing and what you put into place?
Yeah, so the state of Ohio, or ODE, asked in the spring to collect data from all the transportation departments around the state, and several of us submitted to that. It was a one-day snapshot. How many cars or motorists are you seeing sort of violating the red light? And that's essentially a bus is either in the pickup mode or dropping off. Red lights are engaged. Traffic around it should stop according to state law. On that day, on a single day, we had 13 events being reported. And that was in a single day. I think it was like 9 in the morning and then the rest in the afternoon. It's huge. So I asked our team to continue collecting data, and it's not like we're seeing that going down. And starting now at the beginning of the school year, we're seeing that same sort of average per day. The drivers are coming back. Oh yeah, here it goes. This road, this place. And what they're saying is that, oh yeah, I saw the driver either on their phone, looking into their lap, doing something else other than driving. And so a textbook bus stop, you're signaling, the bus puts the flashing yellow lights, right? The amber lights, we call them. 2, 3, the yellows come on, the bus slows down, the reds come on, stop sign comes out, and then we have cars passing. And there's to the point where they're so brazen, so it's on a back road, and they're like, yeah, I don't have time to sit and wait. And they just like go around right from the rear. Or they just kind of play chicken with the bus and try to game the yellow versus the red. And the law actually says the lights being on or off is not a defense at all for not stopping for a bus that's either picking up or dropping off kids. The lights could malfunction and not work at all. The action of the bus picking up or dropping off kids is what you need to stop for. So we're seeing an increase. So what have we done? We've worked, we work with the police department. So right at the first week of school, I emailed over to the chief. I just had a good conversation with him the other day for about a half hour about some of the things that we're doing, some of the things that are worth trying. We're trying to feed them as much data as possible for their, their shift change is right around 7 a.m., which is sort of right in the middle of our AM runs. So they're going to try to staff up a little bit more, try to enforce it. They've done a couple of runs where they're following our buses in a marked car. So that's good and bad, because typically then people don't violate the law when they see there's a police right behind. But they've had cars blow by them, and they just make a U-turn and pull them over, right? So we're working with them. I've talked to the chief about a couple of options in terms of what information does the police department need in order to at least have a conversation, a stern conversation with the person. May or may not lead to conviction, because buses are not law enforcement. There has to be some evidence, whatnot. And then we're looking at running a pilot program with 1 or 2 of our buses to mount a red light camera, which would activate as the stop arm goes out, and then sort of grab footage right before that, and then sort of post. Does that make sense? So if the stop arm's out, the camera's recording, it would then grab the car, the make, the model, the time, the license plate, and then that would be video evidence of like, well, the reason the video's on is because the stop arm is out, which means that the bus is stopped. Those cameras are pretty expensive. I don't have a quote yet for the whole fleet. My plan is to put it on our 2 new buses. They tend to be 2 of the ones that are also getting passed a lot. So the one is 36 and 37. 36 is the one that runs to Maplewood and then comes in and becomes an elementary bus over in the, where are we here? Like the Summers neighborhood right across from the high school. And then the other one, 37, goes up into several different neighborhoods through Lake Gerald and then up to the driver's called the Indians, but it's the Native American neighborhoods. Shawnee and whatnot off of 43.
The names of the roads are names.
Native American tribes. So I don't know what's correct to say.
So
So
are they passing in the development or are they passing
Yep.
on 43?
does not matter. We have an equal amount. So 43, we see a lot of folks pass them. We do a couple of daycare stops. In 43 right there's 4 lanes or even more. Sometimes there's a turning lane in the middle. So oncoming traffic does not have to stop by law.
4 lanes,
4 lanes.
not 3 lanes. 3 they have to stop.
Well, it depends on how it's sort of set up, but we're having cars pass in the same direction as the bus. So they just go around. Now, on 43, we're not going to cross them over, right? So there aren't kids coming there, but they're actively loading or letting off and cars are just going right by. I'm hoping nothing happens, but it's probably just a matter of time before a car gets involved, either strikes a bus or worst case scenario strikes a kid
So let's
crossing
talk
the road.
about them quickly, Andreas. It has happened.
We did have last Thursday, we had our first accident. I think of them just as crashes because that's how the police department think. They don't have any accidents. Someone's always like the guilty party, right? We had one of our buses come out of the elementary school, come out on Kirby, and right in the Kirby 303 intersection, he was pulling out on green. And a bus is not a sports car, so it doesn't just like whip into that intersection. You know, you have to step on the gas and then it kind of thinks of it and then it goes into the intersection. And a car came from the right, went through on red, struck the bus, and sort of admitted to it when the police came. Like, yeah, I was looking in the back seat or something and hit the bus. And luckily, it's sort of it's a smaller passenger van. And a smaller passenger van versus a bus is not going to win. I was at the board office at the time. Ran down there to the bus, checked on the kids. The kids were like, yeah, we're having a great time. They had no idea that anything had happened until the police department got there. Can't say enough about the police department. Luckily, it was just a weird coincidence. They were calling me for more of this red light data. As I'm on the phone, I'm hearing the accident call come in, and I'm like, we got to talk about this later. Please send some folks down to 303 in Kirby. And when I got there, there's already 4 units there. And then we switched the bus out, switched the driver out, drug tested the driver, which is policy, even if it's at fault, right, or not a fault, we just do it anyways. He didn't continue driving. It wasn't his fault, but no kids were hurt. We had a message out to the parents with our new all-call system within 7 minutes of the crash. We were able to send a just to that bus, right? So it wasn't sort of a mass blast of the whole district. And then Mike and I talked, following up that afternoon, and then I sent out a message to the entire district just to say, here's what happened, here's what we did. All the kids are fine. And most of the kids were home within, I think, I'm gonna say like 20 to 25 minute delay. It's hard to kind of tell sometimes, right? But it was a very quick affair. But that just goes to show. That was 3:30 in the afternoon, broad daylight, no rain, perfect conditions, and a guy just like, I'm gonna go through a red light and hit a school bus. So just like.
I think that we've all seen in the past week or two, there's been a lot of attention, both nationally and within the state. Several communities, I think in Ohio, have passed stricter laws pertaining to passing bus stops. And then there's that one scary video where the kids are getting off the bus and the mother's standing across the street and she sees the car coming and she's screaming and the car just blows past while her kids are trying to cross the street.
Yep.
So
So the way we teach our kids to cross, like if they have to cross in front and sort of, and which is not uncommon on our neighborhood streets, including sometimes on Frost, and we try not to do it on Frost and Page and almost never on 43, but the procedure is like, get off, get in front of the bus, like 10, 12 feet in front of the bus, wait for the driver to drop their hand, then they cross to the edge of the bus, and then they're supposed to look, because we need them to think. Meanwhile, our drivers are covering their horns, and so if they're scanning up and down in the mirror, and if they blow the horn, the kids are supposed to look for danger. Don't look back at the bus. Don't look at it, see if they can figure it out. Not everyone's perfect, so we have plenty of kids that kind of get off, they're excited to get home, and they go across. But by that time, the bus has been sitting there for 30 seconds, probably 45 seconds. So.
And deal with the violation, what the fine is or the violation is.
So currently, I think it's like $500 violation for first time, and there isn't really, the chief was saying, there isn't really a like a progressive nature to that now. And some sort of like a level 6 violation in terms of points on your license and things like that. What the state legislature is recommending is either $750 or $1,000 with then a progressively. So now if you have any other school bus incident within 10 years, then it would be progressively worse from there on.
This was discussed Monday night city
Yeah,
council. Mr. Casisco, Councilman Casisco brought it up and initiated a conversation with city council and the police chief. There's a Senate bill, and I don't recall the number, but it is looking at increasing because what Mr. Casisco wanted to talk about was having the city increase the penalties locally. And Chief Powers had discussed that Senate bill and recommended that the city wait to see what happens with that before the city does anything. He did mention that he was in conversation, that he had a conversation with Andreas, and actually Mrs. Pavlik, Councilwoman Pavlik, asked the law director to look into any assistance that the city could offer with funding. He's looking into that. She had asked about grants, and I mentioned that if there's a grant out there for this, I'm very confident that somebody's already looking into that. So, you know, and so they were very, they had very positive comments about everything, and you know, knowing that the parents got notified within 7 minutes of the incident was absolutely great. Thank you for that.
How about this gets introduced that we pay for the cameras, get them on the buses, and any violations that are paid for, we get a kickback on those until we get our cameras paid for.
Probably recover that in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. But if there was a camera on that bus,
Yeah.
and they videoed that person going through, would they have to see that person in the driver's seat in order to get them a violation?
Based off the chief's and my conversation just from this week, even sort of a testimony of a driver having a license plate, time of day, here's what happened, they can sort of figure out who drove the car, as opposed to using the defense of like, well, that was my wife driving or someone else borrowed my car or whatever.
How much are the cameras?
So we're getting a quote for that. I don't want to say they're not cheap, and then times 20 some buses.
Well, we have somewhat of the system already built.
Yeah, most of our buses, with the exception of the 2 new ones, they all have 3 cameras on a 4 camera possible system, if that makes sense. So there's space for 1 more input. Our two new buses have 4 cameras in them because they're so long. So we would need to just put another sort of video recorder in there. So I'm looking at that, but especially on 37 is the one that sees a lot of violations. But then it'd be pretty easy to retrofit. I did talk to the chief about the system that they use for their cruisers, which is way more advanced, but it's sort of law enforcement specific to the point where it'll record if there's a crash or something like that, and it constantly records. So it'll get like the previous 30 seconds and things like that, and they can transfer it over Wi-Fi. Those systems exist. So the Samsara product, I think, that we launched last year, we could tie cameras to that system, and that's certainly something I would like to look at in a future setting, because then we would even be able to pull camera live from a bus. We could add a camera sort of going forward, out. We don't have any external cameras now. They're all internal cameras. But that's money, and that's a little bit of an infrastructure for us to invest in.
The GoPro facing forward and backward.
We could do that, but video evidence. So the other thing that the chief and I talked about is if parents are out there at the bus stops and they whip out their phone, get a video recording of someone, then that's enough to prosecute someone. However, I would rather that they tend to their kids, and we tend to see parents with the K3 crowd. I'd rather that they hold on to them until the bus is there, as opposed to trying to videotape it. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Any other questions for Andreas? And again, I just wanted to emphasize that communication, 7 minutes, those kids' parents on the bus were notified and the entire district was notified. But within that 7 minutes, I was also able to put it on our Facebook page and on our Twitter page. So it was instant notification, or as close to instant notification as you can reach. Still a human element.
7 minutes is great.
All right, next item on my list, incident checkpoint. Okay, so this kind of relates back to report cards, data, funding, everything. So CJ and I I met with a gentleman who is a retired superintendent from the area who's created this platform. Then CJ and I met with him, created this program that it serves as a dashboard that kind of looks at your data before it goes to ODE. So the process is when we enter our data into EMIS, that data goes from a human into the SIS, or Student Information System, and then from the SIS into EMIS. And then we have an EMIS coordinator who then analyzes that data, and then that data has been submitted to the state. So there's a lot of human elements to this process. It's just the essence of the process. So what we've discovered, and it's been a huge frustration to me, CJ can talk to you about my frustration of it, is that time and time again, I see on a district report card, or we see when we have some reporting data, or even look at our even funding, we see something that has affected our funding or our report card that was reported incorrectly. Now, to be clear, I'm going to say this very loud and clear. What I'm talking to you about now is not the fault of our EMIS coordinator. Our EMIS coordinator does an outstanding job. But here's the example I'm going to give you. If Mike Dahlbaugh is a student with a disability, and let's say I have a disability speech and hearing, okay? And so that gets coded into to the SIS and then into the EMIS. When Pam Beach, our EMIS coordinator, looks at that, she only looks at student numbers, and she doesn't know all 2,300 kids in the district. So she sees Mike Dahlbaugh's number and says, okay, Mike Dahlbaugh, grade whatever, speech and language. Make sure it's coded and submit it with everything else. There's no way for her to know if my IEP is current, my ETR is current, if my code is correct. She has no way of knowing any of that. She has to rely on the data from multiple people. She has to rely on it and assume that it's correct. This software package takes the data and pulls it between the district and the state of Ohio and pulls it into a dashboard, which then will report back discrepancies in student error. And it measures things like designation codes. And it looks at, so Mike, who is, we think, is speech and language, that data will then look at the date that's been reported in EMIS for my ETR evaluation, my IEP is a due or the past due, and then we'll also check the disability code. The example I'm going to give you emphasizes the point as to why it's on my recommendations to purchase. We want to purchase this for 1 year and try it out, because it gives a dashboard then that spits back errors that could affect funding, because funding is now rolling. So we can fix errors real time, FTE and SPED, we can fix that all the time. We have critical dates or deadlines for it to be reported on a report card. And so we took all of our data that was just getting ready to be embargoed and rolled into the report card. So you can't change it after a certain date. I think that was September 6th, I want to say. So it was frozen September 6th. We had that company run our data the week prior to that, and we identified over 26 errors that would have been reported. And one of those errors was a student that had one designation who really had a different designation. I'm being purposely vague so I don't violate confidentiality, that resulted in about a $13,000 difference in funding. And it would have also affected our report card and our reporting. We have a newish director of student services. She's been in the seat for about 5 months. We have 2 brand new school psychologists that have never been psychologists before. And then we have our student services secretary. So we have a lot of new people. When we showed this to Cindy, and she can chime in if she'd like, when we showed this to Cindy, that she's been working on this Google Talk all summer, trying to line up every kid that has an IEP or a 504 plan, and when their ETRs are, they reevaluate them every 3 years, and an IEP you have to meet every year, a year minus a day. If you don't do that, you're out of compliance. And it's a nightmare, data keeping. In the program that we use, IEP Anywhere, it's just, we're looking at a lot of districts are getting ready to move on from that. But when we showed her this dashboard, she was like, I've been sitting there doing this all summer long, trying to vet this stuff out. And this dashboard, in a matter of minutes, gave her information that she still didn't have. So we want to purchase this dashboard, and the guy, when he was selling, but when he said to us, the districts that have implemented, where they have 20,000 students or 2,300 students, they go from errors to 0 errors. So for me, I feel like whether it's $13,000 or $100, it's something that we need to do, because it's gonna vet out, and it's gonna check all of our data to make sure. It's gonna check 2 things: FTEs, the kids in the seats, and it's gonna measure our special ed data. Cindy, I don't know if you want to say anything, but I think that.
Well, I was just going to say that the nice part about this so far, if it works the way that we think it will, what it's done already, it compares data from multiple different sources. And for humans to do that, it requires going back and pulling each of these documents and cross-referencing, which just allows for more error to be involved. So it kind of cleans up that process, I think, and helps us find mistakes pretty quickly.
How much time is it going to free up for you to do something else that's more important?
I don't even know we can put an amount on that yet. Quite a bit.
And it's not just Cindy though, too. It would be Carol, our student services secretary, our school psychologist, some of our intervention specialists. It's going to take the human element out of it.
Right.
So,
a typo, just an easy typo can lead to a lot of issues.
It's a no-brainer.
Well, it's on our consent agenda. If you needed to have more discussion or you needed me to pull off, I would do that. But I felt strongly enough to make this recommendation to you as part of the report and leave it on the consent agenda, because really, CJ Helsa, you guys got to give him a high five. He's put his business manager. I don't think I'd ever want to be on the other side of the table from him. But he beat this product down, the price on this product down, and got us several discounts, and it was reduced by $600. You got about 600? Was it 600? Yeah, $500 or $600. They said the price is CJ was like, no, it's not.
That was my reaction. He is telling the truth with that.
Yeah, he always looks like he goes, no, it's not. And then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna watch. So anyway, are there any questions about it? It's called Benson Checkpoint. I would like, once we have it implemented for a few months, I would like to show you guys some of the data on the slideshow. We'll obviously mark off student names, but I want to show you the power of what it does. But now would be the time to dialogue if you guys have some questions, concerns.
No, I absolutely agree with what Mr. Yoli said. It's already paid for itself. We haven't even paid for it.
Based on what you told us, it seems like we need that.
A lot of the districts that are using it, like when you go to their website and read these quotes, there's some local superintendents are going to say, oh my gosh, it's just saving us so much time, and it's just adding that extra layer of help to our people just to make sure that because data starts with the human entering into a system. And when you have humans entering in, it's not because they don't care or they're sloppy, it's just because mistakes happen.
Time's money, and that time you can spend on something else that's going to increase production.
And again, this is about continuous improvement. We talked a lot about that over the last year, that we're trying to get better. This is another way that we're trying to get better. All right.
It's only a year agreement, so if it's a product that we get into and all of a sudden it's not what we like, we're not married.
And I'm sure you'll tell us it's not worth it next year.
We'll see. Or I may say it is. Time to tell.
All right, thank you. 2 more quick things. I just wanted to remind everyone that issue 7 and issue 8 are on the ballot. They're both renewals. Issue 7 is a 3.5 mil renewal levy, generates about $1.5 million. And issue 8 is a 3.9 mil renewal levy that generates approximately $1.7 million. I've got that on our website. I've got it pinned to our Facebook page and pinned to my Twitter feed. So again, we're going to try and keep that out in front of people. It's not a new tax. It's not a new tax. It's not a new tax. It's a renewal. So more on that later. And then finally, this is the piece de resistance this evening. Mr. Scarsupino. I told him the other day that in all the years of working in education with treasurers, I don't think I've ever worked with someone that takes so much pride and attention to detail than CJ does. You guys, we don't need to talk about what he's done. You guys know what he's done. But this award sitting in front of you, you can click on it. He just was notified that he and his office received a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. I just want to read to you really quick what that's about, so bear with me. But the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting has been awarded to the Streetsboro City School District by the Government Financing Officers Association of the United States and Canada for its comprehensive annual financial report, or you guys know it as the CAPR. The certificate of achievement is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting. Its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by government and its management. So this award has been presented to, and you can see a copy of the certificate there, to CJ Scarsapino, and he will very humbly say, and his staff, and I would agree, he and his staff have just blown my expectations out of the water over the last year and a half in the terms of accuracy, customer service, responsiveness. And so I wanted to publicly congratulate CJ and his group and give him a round of applause.
Mike, I appreciate the kind words, but truly unnecessary. It's my job to do this. I enjoy doing it. This award's a reflection of my staff. I mean, I can't do the job without them. And they are a huge part of what we do over there. And my confidence in them and my trust in them leads to these types of accomplishments. So I'd like to just give a big shout out to Linda Shercourt, Sherry Bradford, Karen Bency, and even Marlene, AKA Myrtle Speck, all over there, giving us a hand every day, dealing with me every day. It's probably an award in its own self at some points in times, but I appreciate the recognition, like unnecessary, but thank you.
It is necessary. Like good employees work and stay for a good supervisor, and good supervisor supports their employees, and it just makes everything so much better. So yes, you're all included as that team, but you know, you're the leader and deserve the recognition on behalf of the team, but for yourself as well.
Thank you, CJ. Thank you. You guys make it easy.
We're proud of you.
Mr. President, concludes my report.
There is one more thing, Mr. Dalbaugh, and I think it'd be appropriate to keep it under superintendent's report. I just wanted to report out to the public that Mr. Dalbaugh has been selected as a participant in the 2019-2020 Ohio School Leadership Institute. There will be several classes taking place in October, December of this year, March and April of next year. This is the Ohio School Leadership Institute is facilitated by the Center for Creative Leadership, which is a top-ranked global provider of leadership development. They will have an in-depth focus on direction, alignment, and commitment. Coursework and training, there are four different modules that include simulations, problem-solving, decision-making scenarios, and hands-on innovative tasks that require using new content and tools in a meaningful way. Under developmental relationships, they write through using a cohort model. Participants experience coaching, peer feedback sessions, and shared experiences that build on existing relationships and strengthen their professional networks and ongoing support from the faculty through the tools and content learned in face-to-face modules. There are assignments, and I understand you'll have assignments outside of this course that you need to do that are relevant and immediately applicable to their current role. Mr. Dalbaugh explained to the board previously, prior to sending in his application, I think this is a great opportunity. And how much does it cost the district?
Nothing.
Nothing at all. It's already paid for, and that makes it even better. So I just wanted to offer congratulations to you for your acceptance into the program.
Thank you. I feel like that I was at a point in leadership with this district that I needed to take a look at myself, and perhaps there was some room for improvement as well. So I'm hoping that this gives me some new skills and maybe hone some of the skills I have, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about it. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to treasurer's report, Mr. Scarsapino.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. You all have a spreadsheet in front of you on your computers. It's a 3-year look back from fiscal year 18 to the current fiscal year 20. So we took 17 off of there. Now that we're in the new fiscal year, I just moved everything there. As of July 31st, 2019, the general fund has a balance of $5,888,500.44. This is a negative difference of $53,468.33 from July of 18, and a difference of $1,906,000 $937.69 from fiscal year 18. So again, trending downward, closing the gap from last year to this year, which we hope to see by the cuts that we instituted and we did. We'll see it generate a little revenue again as our advanced collections come in, and then it will start to decrease again throughout that September, October, November, December, and then hopefully in January and February, we're going to start seeing some buildup, because that's when we should be receiving the new money from the levy that was passed. And then we can start trying to build those reserves and really start to try to function without deficit spending. But it's going to get tight. It's going to get tight until that hits. So these first 6 months, 7 months, things are going to be a little tight for a little while, but do our best.
And we need to pass our renewals.
Those are necessary. The levy that was passed in May was designed for those renewals. It wasn't designed without those renewals. Those renewals were configured into everything that we did, every estimate, everything that was done. They are necessary. If we don't pass those renewals, we'll be right back to where we were. That's the simple way to put it. We're trying to move forward. It's no new money. It's just renewals. You know that it's an ask from the public again. We're well aware of it. But we're trying to trend in the right direction. Our report card's trending in the right direction. We need our finance to trend in the right direction so we can help support that strategic plan. So yes, those renewals are necessary, and that's a big piece in all of this. If we don't pass those renewals, we'll be right back to where we were in May. Mr. Grimm, that would conclude my report.
Thank you, Mr. Scarpino. Moving on to board reports, Mrs. Bava.
Yes. I just wanted to mention that the next PTA meeting will be September 18th here at Duffer. And also in October, the PTA has their night at Kalahari on October 10th.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gibson.
I'm nothing to report this time.
Let's skip over to Mr. Kelly.
I have a few things. So both the soccer teams are doing really well. The boys soccer team is 3-4-1. Girls soccer team is 4-1-1. They had a really nice win last week against Aurora, 3-2. Cliff was named Player of the Week last week, in part for scoring 2 goals in the contest against Aurora. So it's a big win for us against Aurora. I don't think we've beaten them in like 10, 12 years or something. So pretty big win. The golf team, both teams have 2 wins. Cross country, both teams are doing well also. The boys team won the Ray Sweeney Invitational last weekend, and the girls finished second at the same Invitational. The volleyball team is 1-4. Our football team is currently 2-0 after beating Chagrin Falls and Orange, which we lost to last year. So it's a good improvement. We scored 104 points total for both games. So they're at Southeast tomorrow. The baseball and softball field dedications were Tuesday. We had a number of school board members in attendance: Denise, Brian, and Andy. Randy Griffith was there. He's the Maplewood superintendent. Mayor Braska and Steve Maswick were there. Roger Friend was there as well. Chris Cianci was there, the baseball coach. And Ali Scally, did I say that right? The softball coach. And of course, our superintendent and AD were there as well. Each one of them got to draw his first pitch on the field, so I heard it was pretty good. Of course, I had to miss it. But American Legion, Streetsboro Post donated the flagpoles and the sound systems for each stadium. So it was really nice of them to do that. And that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Violi.
I have nothing.
Okay, and the only thing, I have a couple of minor items. The high school marching band has 2 band shows coming up. Of course, they're well underway with football games and so forth. They will be at the Medina Band Show, I believe it's this week, followed by the Aurora Band Show. And from Mrs. Hepburn, with local music updates, their first fall choral concert for the middle school and high school choirs will be October 23rd at the high school. The high school choir will then be partnering with Thrive for the winter extravaganza. At Defer Intermediate, they are all, able to offer choir this year during recess for the 5th graders twice a week. And finally, she says they are bringing in a specialist in music education, Dr. Alice Hamill, for the professional development day. She will provide professional development to the music teachers, intervention specialists, and paraprofessionals. They also invited music educators from other school districts to attend and local colleges with eager responses to attend already. She says it's going to be a really positive event for the schools to host, and also because Mrs. Hepburn can't sit still, I think, very long. For 3 Saturdays this month, she is providing workshops to music teachers in Illinois, Las Vegas, and Michigan. And that's all I have.
I just wanted to mention one other thing. I think it took place in between our board meetings. Celebrate Portage recognized the Thrive program, and they had a big banquet and made a very nice presentation. Unfortunately, that was the night of our board walkthrough. So all of our administrators and the board were participating in the walkthrough when that event was taking place. And I just wanted to make sure that we acknowledge that.
Also, Caitlin Cookton, who was at the high school last year, was also awarded, I believe, an award for her community connection project. So 2 Streetsboro, actually.
Yeah.
For you.
So that's if you're not familiar with Celebrate Portage, that's a pretty big program, an impressive program. They put on several events during the year, and that was their major banquet. And like I said, unfortunately, because that fell right when we set our calendar, in January, and so that was the night of our board walkthrough. But I wanted to make sure that we acknowledged that and said that we are very proud of Streetsboro winning those awards.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to consent agenda items. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the consent agenda items B through S.
I'll move.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Any comments? I wanted to call out, there were several donations. Mr. Kelly already alluded to some that were made by the American Legion. Eagles Club also donated $250 each to the middle school and high school choir funds. There were several donations to the cafeteria program and to all the libraries across the school district. Mr. Scarsapino, please call for the vote.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabo?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes, motion carries. Mr. Dowell, any recommendations?
I do not have any recommendations.
Moving on to treasurer's recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the following return of advances.
Move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
You want to explain what this is?
Yes, sorry, I'm just trying to get catch up with my notes here. We advanced money to funds from the general fund at year's end, so now we're just collecting that money back.
Call for the vote, please.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mrs. Ballard?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
And motion carries.
Okay, I have a second recommendation. It is recommended the Board of Education approve permanent appropriations for fiscal year 20, and estimated resources will be adjusted as needed for permanent appropriations.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes. This is something we do every year. We're approving the appropriations throughout the year. It'll change. I can promise you it'll change as grant money comes in and out, or purpose and budget statements change for our 200, 300, 018s. I'm sure we'll see changes probably next month after the walkathon takes place and revenue comes in for that. It's a snapshot in time. It's an ever-changing event. I'm not quite sure why they call it permanent, but it's permanent with changes until we have to do final. So this is just normal day-to-day business for us.
There is a typo, but you didn't correct it. It is
I
for the
just changed
fiscal year
it, so if you
20.
recycle your computer, I'll change it.
Thank you. Please call for the vote.
Mrs. Ballard?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes. Motion carries.
And I have one more. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve a fund-to-fund transfer of $49 from the high school student council fund 29614 to the middle school sped school store fund 29652.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, any discussion?
Yes. We just approved tonight, this new fund for the middle school sped, school store. That account did not exist last year. They want to do some things with that store as well as a coffee shop, so we created those accounts. This particular item brought in some revenue, and student council was nice enough to say you can put that revenue in our account, and we will not spend that. And we said, thank you. Once we create this fund, we'll deposit that in there. So this is just taking care of that housekeeping at this
Kind of places borrowing from one another, huh?
You know, not so much borrowing, but some people just are willing to help out sometimes, and this was an instance where we needed that to happen. So we could get these funds started for these organizations, so they can do, you know, what's best for students out there.
Oh, I love today at this meeting.
I try to bring it everywhere I go.
We need a room for love.
Thank you.
All right, call for the vote, please.
All right, Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mrs. Bava,
Yes.
Mr. Grimm,
Yes,
Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Mr. Viola.
Yes.
motion carries.
That concludes my recommendations.
All right, I'm going to throw this under new business. I forgot to mention one thing in my report. Yesterday, during the September 11th Remembrance Ceremony at the fire station, I wanted to call out Mr. Ciula for stepping in and helping us out. There were two students that were scheduled to come up and play taps for us, but there was a little snafu and they were not able to make it. But Mr. Ciula at the last minute said, you know, basically, we made the commitment, we're going to be there, somebody will be there. And he showed up and played taps for us. It was great. So thank you to him. I did thank him, but I want to thank him publicly here for helping us out. Any other new business? Any old business? Hearing none, moving on to Board President's recommendations. Item A, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the following policy updates, and you'll see them in front of you.
1 second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
There's some critical ones that I want to retain from administration.
And these are all updates that
These are updates.
are required. Please call for the vote.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Mrs. Bava,
Yes.
Mr. Grimm,
Yes,
Mr. Viola.
Yes.
motion carries. Item B, approval of new board policies. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the following new policies.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. There are 4 new policies dealing with service animals, student transportation management, school bus routes and stops, and school calendar. These are required, and these all come from Ethel and Wagner, correct? They keep us up to date. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mrs. Bava,
Yes.
Mr. Viola,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes, motion carries. Item C, executive session. It is recommended the Board of Education enter into executive session to consider the employment of a public employee or official, discipline of a public employee or official, and to consider details relative to security arrangements and emergency response protocols for a public body or a public office with possible action to follow.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Viola,
Yes.
Mr. Grimm,
Yes,
Mrs. Bava,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
motion carries. We are in executive session at 7:23. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.